everyone. Welcome back to Heavy on the Truth, the plus side conversations. I'm Nomi.
And I'm Lux Wonderlust.
If you aren't following us yet, please do follow us on social media. My IG and my TikTok are want_2_Nomi.
And I'm on TikTok as Lux, LUXE_Wanderlust.
So once again, thank you for joining the conversation. If you've been listening, we're so happy you keep joining in. If this is your first time, you're in for a little goodie, a little side venture. And so today we're going to be talking about injuries. Specifically, we'll talk more about my latest injury, which is recovering from ACL rupture, and got surgery, and now I am dealing with the ACL reconstruction. Let's just dive on in there. So for me, never had injuries, which I guess makes sense because I was never really an active person. So I've prided myself on that. No injuries anytime. And then
Right.
in November of 2023, I got a grade 2 ankle sprain. It was pole adjacent, and I say that because I wasn't on the pole when I injured myself. I
Yeah.
was taking a heels class. I actually was in the heels in a squat. I was setting up
And
my
pleasers.
yes, 8-inch pleasers. I was setting up my camera, well, the tripod, in a squat, and then my ankle just gave out and rolled over on it. And it hurt, but I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was gonna end up as like grade 2 sprain, but then it just never
Yeah.
got. That was like my first major injury. And it was, I wouldn't say it was catastrophic. It was just very mind opening because I didn't really know what to do. And I always thought like I injured, I would quit or it would be really hard. And it was because I had to like stay off of it for the most part. I
Yeah.
any pulling or anything like that for minimum 8 weeks.
You couldn't take 5 classes a day.
And then even after the 8 weeks, it was a very strict guideline about what I could do, what I couldn't do. So for me, that was like, okay, not great, didn't love that, but I did PT and I did my PT religiously. And then I also, because I think it was just like just being so active in my life. So it was just kind of like, okay, so what can I do? Even though I can't pull or whatever, I don't want to lose the strength that I've been gaining. I don't want to lose
Mm-hmm.
traction in that buildup that I've been doing. So then it
Mm-hmm.
was finding things that I could do, like mat Pilates in my house, anything really just to just do something. I didn't wanna just lose what I had got, the strength I had gotten. I didn't wanna lose anything, and I wanted to still be active, which I think had I injured myself at a different time in my life, I don't think I would have done that. I think I would have been one of those people where if you tell me to rest in ice, that's all I'm gonna do. And I
Yeah.
I think that's what these injuries have taught me is it's more than just doing the rice method. It is okay to do movement if you do it safely, and
Yeah.
doing that strength training is a lifesaver, and it's going to make a difference in your recovery, especially once you're past the point of healing. So putting in the work in now just makes a difference, and it's actually good for your body.
And the one thing that I've noticed you do is you, of course, you have physical therapists, you have a sports medicine doctor assisting you with this, but you always went the extra mile where you educated yourself as a patient and looked at what more you could do. And we saw you progressing your healing faster than what your PTs and your doctors were expecting because you did that extra work on top of the medical advice and making sure that you were moving and maintaining your strength.
Yes, and I think that was the difference between what happened with my ankle versus when I ruptured my ACL. So basically with my ankle, I think it was just I did the bare minimum. I'm not going to say I didn't do anything and it worked. I did get back up. I was doing well in PT. I did my PT every day when even when I wasn't in the physical PT office. I only did it twice a week, then down once a week, but I was doing PT every day. And then I was doing like Pilates. I was doing other things. But I think with the ACL it was different. Fast forward to 2025 in May, on May 19th, I was practicing my choreo for PoleCon because I got accepted to do a showcase and I was really excited. And then while we were running through it, it was almost a perfect routine, but I had to go over it again, of course. If you're a dancer, if you know, you know. You don't just do it once, you run it over until it's seamless, perfect, nothing's wrong with it. But while I was doing a certain move, mind you, I've done this move countless times and in heels too, whatever. I've done it so many times when I perform, and my knee popped, and I was just like, go forward on it, but then something told me not to, and so I just laid off of it. I iced it, elevated it for a good 20, 30 minutes, and then I was able to stand up on my knee and I was able to walk out. I think the only thing that killed me was going down the stairs at my pole. That was the only thing, and then the subway stairs, but I was able to take the bus and the train. I got home and I was like, "Okay, well, that sucked." Iced it again before I went to bed, and I used my red light.
Red light. I was gonna say, don't forget the red light.
I used the red light on it before bed, and I was like, "Okay." And then the next day, it still didn't feel right. But it was actually worse because I couldn't put any weight on it. Like, I was like, "What is happening?" And then as the days went on, it just wasn't getting any better. And I was like, "Okay." So then I looked it up and I was like, well, what kind of doctor do I see? Because I knew like it would just be a waste of time to go see my PCP. So I found out I needed to see a orthopedic specialist. And I was like, okay, let me go see them. So I went. They were just like, well, I think you like it's something with your ACL, your meniscus. I'm not sure what. And so I had to get a MRI so the surgeon would know exactly what was going on. I was able to schedule one about a week after I went to see him, and then the following week, June 4th, I went to go see him again, but he did make it clear because I was like, "Am I gonna be able to perform? I have a performance end of May," and he was like, "No." And he was like, "You can't even flex your knee all the way. There's no way." He was like, "You came in here on a cane." He was like, "I don't see you performing."
And you
But
were performing in Baltimore. You
yeah,
were
like
performing, and it was a whole convention. You had like a slot. It was like a big deal.
yeah, and I thought he was wrong. I was hoping he was just wrong and I could prove him wrong, but yeah, he was right. I would say that my flexion, I could probably go maybe 40, 50 degrees, bend my knee. That was the best without me feeling real pain. So then I took my MRI and the assessment was that I had my left knee, which is also the same ankle that I sprained, was on my left side. So my left knee ACL was ruptured. I had a medial meniscus tear and an LCL sprain. So in simple terms, I tore my ACL, but I had a repairable meniscus tear, which is the ramp. So it's one of the meniscus in the back of your knee, which is why I had such a problem bending. That's why I couldn't bend it because that had that tore. So compression was really hard. And I had a mild LCL sprain, which it was going to heal on its own. It didn't require surgery. So the meniscus and the ACL were fixable as long as I got surgery, and the AC
Yeah.
and the LCL was going to heal on its own.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important because certain places in the meniscus, like where you tear it, is very, very important because sometimes it's not repairable. And that because it depends on blood supply. So because of where I tore my ACL, it was repairable because it's one of the places where blood supply is easily accessible to it, which is great for down the long run. He really wanted to save that because it was going to help support the graft that I got in my knee later. So he explained the options, and basically, I could live without an ACL. There are, he called them ACL sympathizers, which are people who can live without their ACL and live a great life.
But
However,
you're an athlete.
well, I mean, people who run, they can do it, but if you're going to do anything that has a lot of torque or pivoting, you need your ACL. So he was like, you can live without it, but your level of activity, what you're doing, pull,
Will
would
go
have
down.
to stop. He was like, even in some areas where you're lifting weights, would kind of have to stop as well. You would have to limit what you're doing. And then there was also the chance that I can further damage other things in my knee because I don't have an ACL
Overcompensating.
there. Yeah, if it doesn't have an ACL there, other things are going to be at risk. So I
Mhm.
can tear more of my menisci because of that. I can also tear something else. There's so many other ligaments. I can tear another ligament because my ACL, the main thing that's there, is no longer there. And then there is also the talk as you get older, you can get arthritis. My chances of arthritis increase. So I didn't love those odds in what he was saying. But then when he told me minimum 9 months to get back to pole and everything else, I didn't love that either.
Yeah.
But I was like, "Do I do this now and put myself in a better position? Older me, like, when I'm 60 or 70, I don't have my chances of arthritis are lower." Also, I had a friend who also messed up her ACL. She didn't decide to do surgery. Then 10 years later, she messed it up her knee even more,
Okay.
and she was forced to do surgery. And I was like, "Okay, you know what? Let me just get the surgery.
I
I
thought
it out for a few months to a year, then not do pole, not do anything." So basically, I wanted to go through with that, and once you do that, um, you have to do prehab, so that's what I did. I did prehab, but also I went about it differently because I think it was also my surgeon himself. I wanted to prove him wrong, so I was so determined to prove I didn't really need surgery, and even if I did, I was gonna bounce back really quick. So my eating habits, I was more strict with that in terms of how much protein I was putting in my system.
collagen.
I got more, yeah, collagen was a big thing that I was probably getting, but just not enough. But I also decided to take more supplements because I was only taking NAD, something for anti-inflammatory, and creatine. That was it. And then I found out for this, I did my research and there was so many things that I needed to take. So it wasn't just I needed to take collagen type 1 and 2, not collagen type 3 because that's just for growing your nails
Mhm.
and your hair. It's not what I needed. I had to take something for my joints, my tissues, so I targeted all of that. I even changed, like, my diet. Like, when I tell you I've been eating the same things since May and it's not fun, but it was something that I needed to do. Red cabbage I was eating a lot of, pickled beets, like, things
Bone broth.
bone broth, things that were gonna help my knee, but also, like, the blood supply to my knee, I needed to focus on. So there was just, like, things that I did this time around that I didn't necessarily think about when I sprained my ankle. I wasn't thinking really about what kind of foods to eat for my ankle. I just made sure I wasn't eating anything bad or crazy
Yeah.
because it's so easy when you're off your game to just, treat yourself to stuff you shouldn't really be eating that I didn't necessarily think about. So I was just not going to eat a bunch of sweets. I'm not going to do that. I just made sure it was very basic and I was like, let me make sure I'm still eating my salads and like my protein. But I wasn't as in depth, or I didn't even really think about supplements until this injury. And I think the only reason I was thinking about supplements this injury was because I already had started on supplements post my ankle because I was doing the strength training and stuff. So I was already taking more supplements. I was just in a different mindset. And so this time around, once I sprained my ACL, I was like, okay, well, I'm taking supplements for this. What else can I do? What kind of other supplements should I be taking in order to really help my body, really get it there? And then, of course, I was also doing my red light therapy. I do it twice a day, 30 minutes a day. Solid.
Suggest
Yeah, those things help too, but those were things I was just doing at home because I couldn't really move around. So the first thing, once I decided I was getting surgery, because even though I knew I had to get it. So basically, you have to do prehab. So prehab is basically rehabilitation, and you need it so your body for the strength, because your strength depletes once you get surgery. You're
that.
not moving, so there's really nothing that your body isn't doing what it used to do. And also, it builds that neuromuscular control. And a lot of people don't really know that, but yes, it builds strength, but mostly it's more neurological control. So when I needed my quad to fire up or my leg to fire up, I needed it to remember those things like standing on one leg or raising my leg up, all those things. And also I needed to make sure that I had my full extension, which is important because if you don't have it before surgery, chances are after surgery, you're not gonna get it or it's gonna take a lot longer. So that had to be cleared. I also had to make sure I had my full range of motion prior to surgery. That way when I come after surgery, I can get it back. And that's because there's tissue scarring, all those things. The muscle actually tightens. And so you want your muscles to remember what the full range and capabilities it has. That way it knows what it's going back to. It has that baseline to go back to. And so I had to train those. But where I was when I went to my initial PT, because I was doing a bunch of strength training I had looked up a few videos, so I knew to do heel slides, to do quad sets, but I wasn't doing everything, but I knew to do that much. And I was close enough. And first initial PT, they were like, wow, you're really, really close to what you would need for surgery.
Mm.
Probably just need a few sessions. But I decided I wanted to do about 6 weeks and then I was going to see the doctor again. But I want to do the maximum amount
Right. Of
because I
prehab.
knew I wanted to get my leg as strong as it needed to be so I could have the best results post-op because I was reading about all the things that could go wrong after surgery and I just wanted to put myself in the best position for post-op.
And you were also looking at research on athletes that had suffered the same injury, and you were taking a lot of insights from that too.
Right, that was another big thing. So, I did all that, and I was actually in a good place, and then after the 6 weeks, I saw my doctor again, my PT results, they were as good as it's gonna get. I had 90% strength back in my hip, probably even better than that. I had full extension, I had my full range of motion to 130 degrees, so I was as good as it was gonna get. And so I was like, "Okay, that's great." Um and then we scheduled the surgery for 2 weeks after I saw him. So, the thing is, though, he never really explained to me that when I got my meniscus repaired, that it was gonna be a lot more downtime than he had described. I knew there was gonna be a non-weight bearing period, but I didn't know it was gonna be for 6 weeks, and that was something he probably should have shared. It wouldn't have changed my decision because
Right.
if he had taken out my meniscus, it would have shortened my recovery time, but that also meant that it's more strain on the graft, and the graft won't be as strong, like, having the supporting parts in your knee is necessary, so it was gonna set me up for success either way. So, he just didn't know when he was going in there whether he was gonna be able to save it or not. He saw from the imaging that he could save it, and that was the target, but he never really explained to me, "Hey, when I do this, that's gonna be
This is what's
you're
gonna
not
happen.
bearing weight for 6 weeks on your leg." I thought it was because I just got my ACL reconstructed, seeing different videos, well, everyone else doesn't seem to just be not on their leg for time, even though they have ACL reconstruction, and some of these people actually got the same kind of graft that I got, because you can do different grafts. I decided on my quad, and I decided on the quad from my own body. He actually was pushing for me to get a cadaver, which is from a different person, not mine, because he was
Donation.
yeah, he was more worried about how slow like, he's seen people who aren't athletes, how slow it is for them to get back certain things and the stiffness, so he was worried that my quad wouldn't fire up, I wouldn't have enough strength to get it back up, all these things that could happen when you do it, but then he also was saying, because of my age, I really didn't necessarily need to use my own tissue, I could use somebody else's tissue. But then I had to remind him that well, that's true, but for the average person, I'm more active than a 30-something-year-old, like a 35-year-old, 36-year-old would be. So,
Well, don't put our age out on the internet. We're 29.
yes.
Like,
But, he was saying that usually for females, like, it makes a difference when they're younger, especially soccer players. He was saying if I was in my 20s, then yes, up until the age of 34, usually they tell you use your own tissue. But because of my age, he was saying that it really didn't matter, but I would rather it be as strong as possible because that's the other thing is that if you use a cadaver, the chances are you could actually tear your ACL again, as opposed to using your own tissue with it, and building its own strength. So that was the other thing. Well, I wasn't really expecting to tear my ACL to begin with, so I think I would want to give me the strongest chance of not re-injuring it as much as possible. So we went with my own tissue. But yeah, so that happened. And like I said, he focused so much on explaining cadavers and trying to convince me to get a cadaver that he didn't really tell me that, hey, when I fix your AC, if I'm able to fix your meniscus, you're gonna be down for 6 weeks. And that would have been really important because I wasn't really expecting to be down for that long. I thought it was gonna be like a 2-week thing, no non-weight bearing, fine, let's keep it pushing. But no, it ended up being 6 weeks, and he literally sent a note with my protocol and stuff and was just, "No weight bearing for 6
It's
weeks.
right.
Make sure you go to PT within the next 4 days of after surgery." And I'm like, "Wait, what?"
This is new information.
Right. I was expecting not to be on my leg for 2 weeks. You're
2
telling me
weeks.
over a month I'm not gonna be
Mhm.
on this leg?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, "Okay, well, it's a little weird because I didn't hear that from a lot of people who got ACL reconstruction." Then when I did see him 2 weeks later, he was like, "Oh, no, it has nothing to do with your ACL. You could probably walk on your ACL now." "The reason I'm telling you this is because I repaired your meniscus. That's still fragile, the sutures and stuff. That's why you really can't put any weight on it is because that has to heal and that takes even longer." And I
Mhm.
was just like, "Yeah, you could have shared that with me. I
She
wasn't
didn't
gonna
tell
change
me.
my mind, but it's something I needed to mentally prepare for." So, yeah, and
American medicine for you.
right, I think n because I was doing supplements, because I was so strong prehab, and even the night before surgery well, the day before surgery, I got oxygen, so I think those things put me in a better like, it
Well,
gave
you
me
didn't just inhale oxygen, you went to a hyperbaric chamber and got an
well, yes, that's yeah, when I say getting oxygen, I went to I did
hyperbaric
MBC
oxygen
yes.
therapy treatment.
Yes, that's what I went to go get, and I have gotten it regularly, I get it every 2 weeks since I've been doing that since March. I wanted to do it because I had read online that it would give the surgical environment the best healing options. So, I did that, and I think it did work because my pain levels were substantially lower. I didn't really have pain. I was uncomfortable, but I can't say I had pain. And then once I got out of surgery, I had to go start PT all over. So even though I worked with the same physical therapist, it was basically starting from scratch again. So I had already relearned how to walk. I had gotten full extension, I had gotten my full flexion back, but I still had it was basically starting back
Years ago.
from where like injury it felt like. And that was it wasn't fun, but also it was very hard because not only am I dealing with my ACL, I had to deal with the meniscus. So my protocol was even stricter, and there were things that I just can't do because even though my ACL may have been ready for it, the meniscus was not.
Was that? Yeah.
So the protocol was even stricter. So I think for the 6 weeks, all I was doing was single leg raises, quad sets, and heels. I couldn't really do too much because my protocol said no. And then because I was non-weight bearing, yeah, I could have done upper body workouts and core, but I was on a walker. And not everybody gets that. Let me be clear. The physical therapist that I saw after surgery, because I had never been on crutches before, they thought it would be easier for me to use a walker
Mm.
and then use crutches as needed when I'm not using the walker. So basically, if going downstairs, use the crutches or one crutch, but keep the walker for everything else. And it did make things
And
a
it
lot
helped.
easier. Yeah, I think if I had to use both crutches and not be non-weight, it would have been a lot tougher. So I am happy about that because I was able to put more weight on something that was sturdy and stable instead of trying to balance.
You know,
Yeah, and I was able to carry stuff around. I think I was just able to do a lot more than if I had just been on crutches. And I did use the crutch. I was only using one crutch to like get down the stairs in my building, and they had a railing, so that was easy, and I had somebody around me, so I only really needed one crutch, not really 2. I was using a walker around the house, and honestly, when you go through surgery, that's exhausting.
it is.
It is so tiring, your body is tired, so even if I really wanted to work out, I
Correct.
wasn't feeling it. My body was tired for those first 6 weeks because I just got cut open, and then not only did I just cut myself open, I'm not bearing weight on one side of my body, so my body has to compensate on the other side. I have to literally, like, lift myself and hop with the walker because I cannot put any weight on this.
Mm.
So, could I have worked out? Of course,
Yes,
but did
yes.
I? No. I didn't start working out, I think, until, like, maybe week 5 of surgery, where I was doing, like, core workouts from my bed,
Bad.
the best I can do. Yeah, and not even upper arm stuff. It was just, "Okay, I think I could just do, like, sit-ups. I can do this in my
Mm.
bed for right now until I see him." And then once the 6 weeks got off, it was still slow, and that's the thing. I kept thinking like, "Okay, 6 weeks, not like weight bearing. Now I'ma just be on my leg. Not realizing that, girl, you haven't been on your leg for 6 weeks. It is severely weak. And you had surgery on that leg. I'm thinking as soon as he tells me I could put weight on it, I'm gonna be walking around like nothing. And he was just like, no, your weight bearing is tolerated. And I'm just looking at him like, I can tolerate all the weight. I've been waiting for this moment. Sis, it was so humbling. I was like, my God. When I put weight on it, I almost lost
Oh, no.
my balance because my leg was not used to it and I could not put the full load on it. And I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, okay, well, let me just grab these crutches right now and learn how to walk again for a third time in my life.
Yeah. First.
Well, when you're a baby, a child, toddler,
Never
you do
mind.
that. Then after injuring myself, I had to learn how to walk again, my gait. Now I'm learning how to walk again, fixing my gait. So, yeah, it was just humbling, and I wish somebody would've said I'm sitting here watching all these TikTok videos, and people are just, like, walking again, and I'm like, "Oh, it's gonna be fine." No, I was probably at 50, 60% when he cleared me to walk, that I could actually put weight on my leg without it giving out balance.
Yeah.
Well, I wish somebody would've told me that because 'cause I'm sitting here thinking, after my research and seeing all these videos, "Oh, I'm just gonna bounce back, baby. Don't gotta tell me twice." And then I'm thinking, "Oh, okay, well, once that happens, like, I could bear weight on my leg again, it's over. Imma kill it in PT, Imma do this, like, everything's just gonna go by faster because that's really what's holding me back." And I don't think it clicked in my brain that yes, you're gonna progress, just not the way that you think. Because I
You
am
think you're right.
doing well. It's not the way that I think I should be progressing because I had such a different experience of prehab where I'm, like, dominating and I'm killing numbers and I'm doing exceptionally well. Like, something you see at an athletic, like elite athletic level, people who take this really, really seriously. And so I'm thinking, okay, I should be bouncing back much quicker, but it's not like that. It's slow because A, my meniscus is still repairing itself. And then by the time I was able to walk again, put weight on my leg again, this is actually the time where the tensile strength of the graft is its weakest. It's not the same as the
Wow.
tensile strength of my normal ACL. It actually reverts because it's starting to become a ligament. Right now it was a graft. So then what happens is it goes through ligamentization, which it actually takes the place and becomes a ligament like my ACL would have been there. But the scar tissue, all that stuff, like, dies out, decays.
It's
The original ACL has to be killed off, and so the graft is there, but the graft isn't my real ACL, so it's been attached and sutured in its place, but it doesn't know anything
it
about
hasn't taken over yet. Yeah.
yeah, so that's what's happening now, but it's a very slow process. I didn't know that. So now I'm thinking I'm gonna kill it because at 6 weeks mark, it's on and popping, but no, I'm not gonna kill it because actually from like week 6 all the way to maybe the 6 month period is what they call the early stage of ligamentization. So right now, the strength is getting there. It slowly increases, but it's not exactly where it needs to be. Right now, my knee is probably the graft is about 50 to 60% of what it should be. But like I said, nobody really explained that to me. Getting all this information as I'm like, frustrated and researching because oh, this is really hard and I can't do certain things. And I understand part of it's the meniscus. And then, oh, I read further and I'm finding out it's not just your meniscus, it's actually because it's trying to become a ligament. It's just weak at this point. You can't, so doing certain things is not within its capacity because if you do it at this stage, do too much, you're gonna mess it up.
Mm,
Tear again, you can injure it. So it's a very slow process because even though mentally and probably physically I could do it,
yeah.
I shouldn't because biologically it's not where it needs to be. Biologically, the ACL reconstruction surgery is a very slow process. And I think it's been hard because no matter what I do, I can't beat the biological process. Can't make
Yeah.
it faster. Taking the supplements, doing red light therapy, going to get oxygen therapy,
Hyperbaric.
all those things, they help the environment. So it gives it the best environment to heal, but it's not gonna make it faster. And
Yes.
I keep thinking, "Oh, well, if I do all these things, this should make it heal faster." And it's like, no, you're giving it the best advantage to heal at fully and completely, but you're not speeding up the process. And I think that has been the big thing. I've been trying to show my surgeon, "Yeah, you wrong. Imma beat this process."
It's
I think it's because he's just so to the point and a little too honest, where he's just like, "No, it's just not possible." And I'm like, "Would you say that?" Because I feel like he doubts my abilities, and he really doesn't get it because he deals with a different type of patient. And that's how it's always felt is when I met him, like, I was like, "You just think I'm just a fat black girl that does pull for fun." No, I do pull, I do weightlifting, I do a lot of stuff. And even checking in with him at our checkups, he's always surprised because I think I was asking him the 6 weeks or maybe 2 weeks, I was like, "Can I do red light therapy?" Like, and he was like,
how do you know about that?
right, he was kinda surprised, and he was like, "Well, normally I would tell you no because red light therapy usually is for the 6-week mark and after because we don't like to do light therapies." But then he saw my knee and he was like, "I can tell your sutures and stuff have really closed up, so I'm not really worried about infections, so I'm gonna say right now it's okay for you to use it." He was like, "From what I can see, you've healed really well. Everything's closed. It should be fine." And then when I saw him, like, at the 6-week checkup, I was like, "Hey, is it cool if I start doing, like, upper body and core?" And he was like, "Yeah, like, of course you can." And I can't and well, I feel like maybe if he considered, like, what I do, like, athletic, if I was, like, athletic to him, I feel like he would have told an athlete, like, "Yeah, you should be
Don't stop.
now at 6 you should be doing upper body when you're 6 weeks out." He would have gave them a different protocol, but I think he thinks I'm not. And even at our recent visit, he was all smiles because 'cause I've hit everything that I needed to hit. I have full extension, I'm damn near full flexion too, and I have my neuromuscular control is there. And I think he wasn't really expecting that, and he was just like, "Oh, this is exactly where you need to be." He was like, "You're doing really well. Now I just need you to just focus on strengthening your knee because I know that you're fine now." And I was just like, "Okay, well, what does that mean?" We're 3 months in, what can and can I do? And we actually sat there and he was actually describing, like, some of the things I can do, some of the things I can't do until I see him again for my 6-month checkup. But it was just kinda like, if I was maybe white and athletic like the boys that you usually treat, because every time I'm in there, it's literally like a whole bunch of white guys sitting there, college kids, waiting on him. So I can't help but think, I'm like, If I was one of them, would I really have to sit down and have this conversation with you and ask you questions?"
Probably
Right, or would you be giving me
what to do.
that information? And it's frustrating, but also I know he's one of the best surgeons because my sports medicine doctor was like, if you needed someone, he's the guy I recommend. He's top notch." And people who have seen, like, my scars on my knee, they're like, "Your surgeon did fantastic work." Even though I was skeptical of it at first because it looked like Frankenstein, it was super tight, and I was like, "Did he not care about my knee? Like, he knows I'm balding, and he knows I need to show him my knee."
He's a man. He's a man. He's a
I've
man.
had, like, a bunch of friends who are, like, in the medical field, they're like, "Girl, that looks beautiful," and I was like, "It is?"
Beautiful according to whose standards?
"Yeah, it's looking Frankenstein," and they're like, "Oh, no, that's gonna heal beautifully, don't worry about it." And then once the stitches got out, and even now, my friends are like, "Oh, yeah, he did a really, really good job," and I'm like, "Thank."
Whatever.
I'm relieved, but trust me, the first in the beginning, it was not giving, and I was very worried. Now, oh, it doesn't look bad. Like, you can tell I got surgery, but I feel like in a year, maybe a year and a half, like,
Yeah.
those scars are not gonna be there, or it's gonna be very, very, like, very, very little trace of it. Um,
Can you
so
use arnica on them now?
no, I don't use arnica. I have these, like, silicone gel strips
Also.
that are supposed to, like, remove it. I just can't use it yet because they're still massaging, like, doing massages and scar therapy on my knee. So I have to ask my physical therapist, like, when that's gonna stop necessarily because there's still a little bit of swelling in my knee, so I still need to be massaging it, and so they still need access to it. But once that has passed, I do wanna, like, use the silicone strips because that's supposed to be the best way to remove surgical scars.
Mm,
But yeah, I would say now it's getting better, like I said, because I don't see the progress, and I thought it was gonna be something different, especially since
mm.
how I did in prehab, I was thriving and I was killing it. So in a lot of ways where I'm just like, "No, this sucks." I got reintroduced to the bike at 6 weeks, and The funny thing was my surgeon, when he saw me, he was like, "Why aren't you doing the bike yet?" And I'm like, your protocol says I can't touch the bike until 6 weeks and after." Like, they're like, the PT isn't gonna go beyond what your protocol says.
Right,
And he was like,
exactly.
"Oh, no, you can definitely do the bike now. You should be doing the bike." And I'm like, "Your protocol doesn't say that. What are we
To
talking about?"
to be a man
Right? I'm like,
must
"Oh, because he saw how well I was doing." But if your protocol says something else, she's not gonna go
we're
against.
not gonna go over that.
Yeah, she can't. That's dangerous. She decides, "I'm just not gonna listen. We're going beyond your
Not
protocol."
listen to the doctor,
Right, and
exactly.
then I go to my doctor and something happens, she's in trouble. So, of course, she's gonna go by what your protocol said, and your protocol says you don't start really doing the bike until technically 6 weeks or so. But I also he put me in a neoprene hinge sleeve brace, which is a downgrade from the surgical brace that I had, and I was supposed to have that surgical brace at least until week 10,
Oh,
um, before I could discard it. But he was just like, "No, you don't really need it." Um,
yeah.
I guess he didn't want me to have to come back after 6 weeks. The next time he saw me at my 14 weeks. So I think if I had to keep the brace on, I woulda had to, like, make a follow-up appointment 4 weeks later. But he was like, "No, I think you're ready for the neoprene sleeve." So there's, like, things that I don't think is a big deal, but it actually is a big deal compared to how people actually heal. And forget that because, like I said, I really crushed those numbers in prehab, and it was going by so quickly, and I was doing really well and I was excelling. Whereas because I have to think about my meniscus, um, and because the graft itself is so weak, there's only but so many things I can do. And so it gets really frustrating because now I'm in the phase, even though I have my full extension, I have basically full flexion, my knee is constantly stiff. Nobody told me that my knee was going to be stiff no matter what. Now I'm at the point where if I extend it for more than 30 minutes, it gets stiff. If I bend it for more than 30 minutes, it gets stiff. And the crazy part is, like, when I was bending it, yeah, like, my knee would get really uncomfortable, but now, like, it's stiff, so, like, as soon as I get up, I'm limping again,
Mm,
and it's so frustrating because, like, my gait is almost perfect. Like, if I once I do my PT exercises, my gait is perfect. I'm walking like a normal person, and it feels great. But as soon as I sit down for too long, or as soon as I have that leg extended for too long, I'm back to limping. So I wish somebody would have told me that. People were talking about losing their nerve sensation. They were talking about a lot of other things, but no one told me that by month 3, I would be dealing with this constant wave of stiffness.
oh, wow.
So yeah, it's frustrating because I did so much research, but then it just feels like it's still not enough.
Do you think that the gap in the information was because a lot of the information you were finding out there was not targeted towards plus size people?
I don't know if that's it or if I think it's just I don't know if everyone's just different in what kind of surgeries, how their ACL reconstruction surgery goes. But I also think because it's really hard when you're injured. I
Mm,
think you're already vulnerable, you already feel down about yourself. So I don't think people really share a lot of insight,
very true.
And so I think there probably are a bunch of people who have had this kind of issue with their knee. And I know my PT said it. She was like, that's actually more common than you think. It's because you're doing more now with your knee. So the synovial fluid is getting trapped more. She was like, it's gonna get better. I know it's nothing to worry about because you told me after you do your PT exercises,
You're
you feel
fine.
fine, you feel great, you feel good. That tells me everything that I need to know. But you're still early. And then when I saw my surgeon, I told him I wanted to let him know too. And he was just like, "No, I don't think you have anything to worry about." He was like, "If you're feeling good after your PT exercises, that tells me that you're fine. It's just you're doing a lot more, so the stiffness is gonna happen." But these are things I wish I would have known. It wasn't gonna change my mind because I needed my ACL repaired at the end of the day for me to go back to the lifestyle I was having. But it would have been good to mentally be prepared for it because 'cause I've never been injured before, so it's a lot that you're going through. Like, a physical thing is a mental thing, and that's really important. I always thought if I got seriously injured, it would take me out, I would be there laying dead in my bed, and I'm itching to get up there, to be working out, and I have all this FOMO when it comes to pole and aerial and even strength training because I can't even lift, like, as heavy as I could if I was going to classes, so it is really a mental thing too, and I don't think that's discussed enough because you do go up and down. It's a real roller coaster. Most days, yeah, I feel fine, I feel good, but then other days, no. There's shame, there's frustration. I feel shame because I injured myself, and how could I injure myself? Other people don't. There are days where I go back to, like, that day on May 19th, and I'm like, "Maybe I just should have told my instructor, 'No, let's not go because it's damn near perfect. That's good enough. Let's stop until next week.'" There's so many ways I replay it and think about it, and I have to stop doing it, but sometimes that's all I can think about because I would be in such a different place right now if this didn't happen, and I constantly think about all the opportunities I've missed out on, all the things that I have happened, and I'm like, "Wow, if only this didn't happen, that would have been great. I would probably be further in my journey. I would have been performing more like I want to." So, I think some people they're very vulnerable, and I don't think people like to share vulnerability.
I know. I mean, because our podcast is about being heavy on the truth on from the plus side perspective. And because I know when I sprained my ankle, I wasn't working out, but I felt sort of the need to always clarify when someone saw me with my boot, like I didn't get injured while working out. Because I think a part of us is kind of like, if you get injured while working out, then everyone's gonna say, see, like, you weren't supposed to be in these spaces anyway. You weren't supposed to be doing what you were doing. You're doing too much. But I and it shouldn't be that way, right? It's working out is a sport or you're training like an athlete. Injuries are gonna happen. Athletes are injured all the time and nobody thinks twice about it. But I'm not gonna lie that as a plus size person, I'm very hyper aware of that possibility. And I think maybe that's why I'm super careful with myself when I'm in the gym. And I'm like, I try to listen to my body as much as I can. Of course you can't avoid injury, but I just wish that there wasn't that negative connotation of us as plus size women. So do you think in your situation that you had this extensive injury that required surgery that maybe some people think she shouldn't have been doing what she was doing anyway?
I do. I think I touched on it last week, well, no, 2 weeks ago a little bit when we did, the trauma and fitness.
Mhm.
I do think that and I think that's part of a lot of where the mental depression and frustration comes in because I am worried I think in general when you injure yourself, you feel a sense of loss of legitimacy, but I
Mhm.
think it's more so true I do feel like people are gonna say, like, "She injured herself because she's fat," because not a lot of people talk about injuring themselves as dancers. I think there's been 2 girls that I actually happened to find that actually did rupture their ACL. One of them is plus size, and another one isn't, but it's not a common injury. I think it's more common in pole than people probably let on. I think more so people talk about their rotator cuff, their shoulders, their back. Those tend to be
Mm,
focused heavily as pole
common.
injury. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think people really talk about, yeah, you can rupture your ACL while doing this, but I do feel and I've been thinking about it, I'm like, "Oh my god, people are gonna say because I'm fat and I was pole dancing, that's why I ruptured my ACL, not because I'm an athlete and I'm doing something crazy that requires a lot of pivoting." Because literally when you rupture your ACL, it is because you've pivoted way too fast and quickly, so it twists too much. It ruptured. That's why it ruptured is because I pivoted too violently, it was too quick, and my ACL couldn't stabilize, and it was trying to stabilize, and that caused the rupture. And that's why you see it a lot in soccer players. That's why you see it a lot in football players because those are sports where you are pivoting quickly. So if you pivot too quickly, you could rupture it. But yeah, I do worry about that. I Some people it's gonna be straight up, she's fat, that's why she tore her ACL. End of story for them. They don't wanna hear anything else. Which is funny because I mean, you wouldn't tell a 300-pound man who's in the NFL if they ruptured their ACL, you
Yeah. Uh,
"Oh, well, he's fat." No, he's a football
he's
player,
a football
he's
player.
an athlete.
These are
So
normal injuries.
right, so why isn't it the same thing for me as a plus size female who does pole, who does hammocks, who does hoops, who lifts heavy shit all the time, so I'm not extended the same grace.
The patriarchy.
Yeah, it does hurt, it does, and it is stressful. I feel stress on top of what I'm already dealing with because I do feel like I'm not as legitimate as I was before I injured myself. I do worry that, like, people won't see me as, like, a great pole dancer because I injured myself.
Yeah.
I worry that if I do try to apply again for PoleCon for their showcase again, like, I'm not gonna get it because I injured myself. Like, I feel like they might just say, "Well, if we give her the opportunity, she might just injure herself again. Maybe she'll never get
Yeah.
asked to the
No, I
stage."
don't think so. I think the fact that you and I do commend you for sharing this journey and documenting it on TikTok and YouTube as you've done. So you're able to take others on this journey of showing how you have worked on it. You've done the research, you've put in the work, and you've rehabilitated your body. When you do get back to full flexion and full capacity, it's actually going to be, a huge success and a huge motivator for others that don't let an injury take you out. And it's just strength of your willpower and your skill. So I think actually you're going to have more opportunities later because of that. Because you were able to come back from surgery and be back to where you were before.
And I hope so, and that is the goal, and I also wanna put it out there for everybody. Yeah, what happened to me was a bad industry
Mm,
injury, but it wasn't catastrophic. Like, my
yeah,
injury could have been so much worse if I wasn't strength training, if I wasn't as active as I
yeah,
could have been. Like, everything that happened was a classic athletic knee injury, but it's all fixable, and I think that's also why I'm where I am today when it comes to PT and recovery, is because everything was fixable. My LCL was just a mild sprain. It went back during prehab, it repaired itself.
yeah,
My meniscus, it was able to be repaired and it was fixable. It wasn't something that had to be removed. Even with the quad graft tendon, it's fixable. Now I just have to strengthen my quad again. And honestly, my quad strength is really good. And my quad muscle has gone almost back to like fully where it was. Like we just did an assessment and my assessment was four fours and 4.5s. I even think I got a 5 out of 5 on one of the assessment exercises. So, I am recovering really well, and that is because of how heavy I was with, like, movement and exercise. So, I also wanna take that time to say, like, "This is a bad injury, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, but people without my kind of background and who aren't into heavy recovery and all this other stuff, the injury could have been a lot worse. It could have been catastrophic. I'm very, very well, not lucky. I put in the groundwork and with supplements, with eating right, all that stuff during prehab, since getting injured, all that. I put in the work and I also was doing stuff before I got injured too that set me up for sustaining injury in the least catastrophic way as possible.
hmm,
I also wanna put that out there because I think people who don't understand injuries and how it works, yes, an ACL rupture is very bad, but also most times when you do rupture your ACL, you are going to tear or a meniscus. Where that location is depends on how it takes the blow. Luckily for me, mine was in the back, so it was able to be repaired because it's one of those areas that get enough blood supply, but you could have your meniscus tear in a different area that is called the white supply area, which means it doesn't get enough blood supply, which means more than likely you can't have it repaired. It's not savable. Same thing with my LCL. It was a sprain. Most times you're going to sprain or injure or rupture other ligaments depending on how bad the blow is in your knee. So my injuries aren't as bad as they could have been. And I think that also plays a part into me having some sort of athletic background, like,
yeah.
because I've been doing this, being athletic
I
in
understand.
the past couple of years, that has made a difference, and as I've done more, I've been more, diligent about what I'm eating, doing supplement, recovery hacks and biohacks and methods, stuff like that.
Doing
So
a PT every day.
and yes, and I think that's also another thing. I was doing PT every day, and even before I even had my PT assessment, when I first injured myself, when I saw it, my PT was like, "Oh, well, you're basically your own PT, girl. What am I doing here? You're doing everything I wanted
Right.
to do." So, yeah, and even now, she's never worried about me. She's like, "Oh, I know you're gonna do your PT at home." And that's also really important. Like, most people, when they do it, they're doing PT twice a week, but they're doing PT twice a week when they go see their PT. They're not doing it.
No.
They're
Mm.
sitting there lying down, not really wanting to do much, and you can't do that. And even now, I dedicate once a week where I'm now at the point where I have my brace on, but I'm doing BFR, which I can talk about um in another conversation, but that's basically blood flow restriction. And that's like a hack that I learned that LeBron used to do when he had injured his foot. And that basically restricts blood flow, but it makes your brain and your body think that you're lifting weights. So you're doing less reps, but you're building the strength as quickly as you would if you were doing the weight training. I'm not going to say it's like a shortcut because it's not, but it is a very helpful method and tool, and I can get into that later.
I think LeBron is gonna send us a cease and desist because we talk about him every episode.
So that was something I learned from him, but yeah, now once a week I do because I don't want to push it because I have like heavy kettlebells at home, like 44 pounds. One I think is 50 something pounds. I know my graft is weak, so I don't want to push it. But now I'm doing like kickstand RDLs, I'm doing
Yes.
squats, I'm doing things to like build the strength that I need to build now. And once a week is fine. Slowly I'm going to progress to twice a week, but I need to build the strength and I'm going to do it smartly. I take this very seriously, do my own research, and my PT will ask me, "Oh, are you doing this? Are you doing that?" Like, she wants to make sure that I am actually doing the strength training that I'm doing. Also, like, use a resistance band for my PT exercises. That's what I do sometimes. I use an ankle weight or I use my resistance bands and I do the exercises where I'm building the strength while also following within the guidelines of what I should be doing. I also know, like, the exercises that I'm doing, even though my PT didn't tell me to do them, they're exactly where I need to be doing for where the stage I am in recovery based off of my research. So I'm not worried that I'm doing anything crazy. And when I post those videos on TikTok and like Instagram, I'm always sharing where I am post-op because that's probably where you should be when you're doing those things. I don't want people to be like, I'm 2 weeks out, let me just try this. No, you shouldn't be doing that. If you see where it says I'm 13 weeks and this is okay for me to do,
Right.
it's probably generally okay for most people to do, but also I have a different background, so people should probably check, like, that they can do those things. If you don't have that kind of, like, active background, then more than likely you probably should check with your medical advisor, whoever it is, like your PT, your doctor, check with them first to make sure you should do it. But yeah, like I think it helps and I don't want to say I don't know if legitimate is the right word because I do feel less legitimate the more exercises I do. Even though I'm doing them, it's weird because I do feel like I've lost legitimacy and I don't know how to get that back. And even when I'm seeing myself and I'm crushing my PT assessments, it still doesn't feel right. I don't know what that's going to take for me to feel okay with myself.
Being back in the studio,
Yes, I
probably.
know having that comeback will help, but I just don't know. Maybe somebody else who's injured can tell me that, but I think it's just one of those things, a loss of legitimacy is definitely
No, it's
always
not
on my
lost.
mind.
It's it's understandable that you feel that way because of everything you've been through, but it's just like another it's a mental muscle that maybe you need to rework on again. But it's okay, take your time to heal. That's the highest priority right now, get your body back to where you need it to be, and then the mental aspect will follow.
Yeah, I think when I'm working out, I feel good. I don't know when that feeling of feeling okay and feeling like I'm a true
Yeah.
athlete again will come back because I do feel like I'm not necessarily a true athlete just because I've injured myself. And I know that sounds crazy and it's a very hard thing to explain, but I think if you've been seriously injured, you feel that way. It's just like a hard thing to explain. Like, you feel like you failed somehow. You failed yourself, you failed your body. And so for some reason, I I feel like I've lost that space and that platform to say, "Do this, do that," and I know everybody loves a good comeback, and that's nice, but I just feel like there's gonna be at some point some troll that tries me and probably says the thing that I'm thinking in my head, and it's gonna validate that self-doubt that I've been having.
Well, has LeBron had any serious injuries that he's come back from?
I think when he messed up his foot, yeah. He's had a few.
See? Is
I
he
know.
left legitimate?
No, I know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like I said, it's just a weird thing, like a mental health thing to work through. Like, it's a weird
It'll come with
thing you
time.
have to work through. Yeah.
It's not out the norm.
Yeah, it's just it is a crazy roller coaster, and we can always come back to the conversation again. I will say that is one of the biggest things is the mental side of this, and I think it just exacerbates because of the physical limitations I'm feeling right now, because I'm 3 months. It should be further along. My surgeon literally was like, "Oh, well, we're still in the early stage." I'm like, "Bro, 3 months? We're still in the early stage." It's just the biological healing is so
It's long.
slow,
Yeah.
it's such a slow process, and there's nothing I can do about it. So, I can always make a video about this and talk more about this more, but yeah, I think that's basically it. I guess the big takeaways I would say when you're injured is research for yourself
Advocate for yourself.
and advocate for yourself. Because after I saw my surgeon and he gave me, like, my options, I did go and see my sports medicine doctor to see if she agreed with that. And she agreed with everything that she saw in the assessment. So, definitely advocate for yourself. I would say also do your research. Don't just rely on, like, TikTok. I did watch TikTok. It did give me a few good pointers on what to expect. A lot of people don't really share everything, and also, I don't think people are really researching what's wrong. They go by what their doctor says because a lot of people will just say, "I just got an ACL reconstruction surgery." Okay, but
Mhm.
different type of grafts. What kind of graft did you get? What kind of like, there's so many things that go into it. Or somebody,
Right.
"I got my meniscus repaired," but what part of your meniscus did you get repaired? There's so many different elements to it, so when you see somebody on there, like those TikTok reels that show people recovering in post-op, it's very different because I thought me being post-op was gonna look very different. I saw
Right.
people literally that were day 4 off of surgery, and they're literally walking with 1 crutch or going up and
Oh,
down stairs, and I was like, "That's crazy." And that wasn't what my story was. I had a very, very different experience with my injuries, so make sure you understand your injury 'cause I also did a lot more research on my injuries to understand the extent of what was happening, what was going on, just so you're better informed about what you need going into surgery, or if you don't decide you wanna go surgery, going into the rest of your life and how that's gonna look. Also, it is mental. It's physical as well as mental. I would say that's another takeaway. You're gonna go on a roller coaster, and that's very, very valid because you're going through a lot. Your body you're limiting what you used to do. You're remembering what you used to do versus where you are now. In a lot of ways, you're relearning things that, you've never had problems before or never really thought about before. So I would say that is another biggie too, is like it's a very, very emotional roller coaster, so make sure you have good friends to help you and family, good support system that'll listen to you because I know I've called you or you've called me a bunch of times. You're always asking about my knee. Like, if I make even the slightest little sound of discomfort, you're very worried. You're like, "Do you need a doctor? You are very good. Are you okay? What happened to your knee? What did you do?" I'm like, "Girl, I just gotta
'cause
readjust."
I'm like, do I need to book the train and come to New York? Like, what's going on,
Right. I'm
girl?
just like,
What's going
"Girl."
on?
And you're just like, "Is it normal? Are you okay?" Like, "Are you sure you should be in I think so, I'm good." Just sitting on the phone, "I'm sorry, I just had to move my leg, it hurts a little bit."
Girl, and you be like, oh, and I'm like, oh God, here we go. And she's like, oh, it was just, I was just reaching for something. I was like, dramatic?
'Cause like
You
I
know, we're
said,
hypersensitive right now.
it's very different. Your body's going through it helps to have a good support system of people who care, who people who will wanna listen to you complain and about it and just be there. So, I think that's the other takeaway. And no injury is cookie cutter or simple, but also do your PT every single day, not just when you have to go see your PT. You should be doing it at home if you really wanna get your strongest and if you really wanna get better as quickly as possible. That is the best way to do it. And also, I would say when your body feels it, because for me, my body was very much itching to move, that meant it was time to start trying to do
Mm,
exercises. And I would say you don't have to just sit there and rest, ice, and elevate your leg. There's more that you can do. And yes, those are important things, but also know when movement is the medicine and when to do that because going to make a big difference in how you recover.
Movement as medicine.
Yeah.
Or
Those are all my takeaways.
yeah.
I don't know if
And
you
I mean, I know we didn't say earlier, but none of this is medical advice.
yes,
Consult with a medical professional.
always consult with
These
a
are
medical
our
professional.
opinions
Yes, and what
and our
we
lived
did.
experiences.
Yes, yes.
Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.
That is very, very important too. So yeah, those are the takeaways from this conversation. Hopefully, I mean, you could take them, you cannot take them. We just here to state things and chat with each other and have you guys listen to it. So do you, boo? If you like it, I love it.
Like it, I love it.
So that's it for this conversation on injuries and more specifically my ACL reconstruction surgery journey. We hope that you guys will continue to tune in for the next episode and thank you for listening. This one was a little on the longer side, but well worth it. And we hope you guys got some goodies. And remember to follow us on social media platforms. I am _2_ Nomi on Instagram and IG.
And I am Lux, Luxe underscore Wonderlust. Lux Wonderlust, Lux underscore Wonderlust on TikTok.
Okay, guys, until
And
next
yeah.
time. Bye.
Ciao.